And coming off tour after tour after tour, that doesn't set you up to be a civilian. That sets you up to be a soldier that has war experience. And so I get home to civilian world, and I'm like taking a break from tours basically. It's like there wasn't really another deployment going on, and so I just started drinking. My marriage went to crap. My family didn't really care about me. I was dealing with PTSD, and so I was just searching for orders.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am with Paul B. Miller. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on, Jeremy.
I'm really excited to get in our conversation today. It's always exciting. You never know where it's going to lead us.
I'm excited also.
So I'd like to kick off the show and talk about the importance of networking. How are we connected?
Through a Facebook group. It was called Be a Guest, um, Find a Guest, and I found you on there.
I really love those kind of groups because you really never know what kind of people you're going to meet and end up connecting with, and of course, hopefully being either a guest or having a guest on the show.
I agree. I didn't know who I'd run into, and I've so far met some really cool people.
I want to know what brought you to that group. What made you interested in that?
Well, I have a friend who is, for the lack of better words, on a spiritual journey, and I went through a spiritual awakening about 3 years ago, and I've been looking for other people, and we started talking, and we shared our stories, and she encouraged me to reach out to some podcasts, and so she gave me the Facebook group name, and I joined that, and just from there, I started searching.
It really is great with that because you can really find a wide variety of people. And I think podcasting is so great in the sense of whether you have your own show or even better yet, you can be a guest on people's show and really get your message and your story out there.
Yeah, it was a really good funnel to find what I was looking for.
That's one thing I like is because, as you mentioned, it's a funnel. You can really look at what you might be interested in. Maybe there's some obviously podcasts out there that I wouldn't be a great guest for, or they maybe not be a great guest for me on the show. But it's really interesting to see what is all out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of different topics and subjects, but it's like everybody has something different they want to see or hear about.
I couldn't agree more. So I want to know a little bit more about you. That comic book issue number one, origin story. Who's Paul?
Oh man. Okay, so we'd have to go back in time about 43 years. I was born into a Christian home and a Masonic home, and also with roots in the occult also. And I didn't know this as I was a child growing up, but I was raised in Christianity, um, conservative, and once I got old enough, I chose to leave home as soon as possible. Just to be honest, that childhood was a really, really rough childhood, and I just wanted to escape, and I saw the military as my escape. And so for me, that was freedom. And I joined like right before 9/11, and then shipped off to basic. And within a year, I was deploying, going to war. I did that for several years, several years.
What branch of the military did you choose? And of course, there's other opportunities, trade schools, working. What made you? What really brought the interest in military to you?
Truth be told, I think I was like 7 or 8. I was really little. I was walking downstairs in the living room, and I saw the Gulf Storm War on the television, and they were broadcasting. And I was upset, and I was in tears. And in my heart, I was like, I'm going to go to war one day and join the army, so my brother would never have to do that. In my heart, he was my older brother, and I think they had mentioned the draft on there. My parents explained to me what the draft was, and that scared me. I was like, my brother might be going to war, so I'm going to do it so he doesn't have to. Um, and that was a huge motivator for me. Um, and then when I got old enough, I realized I wanted to leave this home severely bad. So it was basically my dream and uh, the key to my escape.
So you go to basic, and as you mentioned, this was a little bit pre 9/11. When those events happened, how did that really change your experience inside the military? Because I know a lot of times people just got out and go back into the military because of that, or because of 9/11, a lot of people joined. So you were kind of in between there.
Here, man, that's a really awesome question, and I appreciate it so much. Um, because to me, looking inward, it revealed my heart because I joined right at 2 weeks before 9/11 happened. But I joined because I truly wanted to. I didn't join because of the media or some huge scare and just do it because everybody else was doing it. It was this deep personal choice in my heart that I was following. And so, of course, when I got to 30th AG at Fort Benning, Georgia, the there's this like battalion it's called holdover battalion. Everybody waits there before you get sent to your training battalion. And there were just floods and floods of recruits coming in during that time. They didn't have a place to put them, and it was surreal. Every night there'd be bus after bus after bus showing up, and I talked to these guys, and they were there for the fact that the towers fell. And but anyway, just for me, it was just this huge difference of why I did it. It wasn't anything external. It was just, I guess, just deeply in my heart what I wanted to do.
How long were you in the service for?
I was in right at 16 years.
So through there, where were you all stationed during your service?
Well, I was National Guard and I got put on Title 10 orders a lot. And starting out, I was on Homeland Defense, which was, I think, in 2001 or 2002. And so we did security at different bases in Alabama. And then we got finished with that, and they started asking for volunteers for the Iraqi war or the Iraq war. And, and so I threw my hand up. And so within a month or two, I was shipping out. And it was just like a team of us. There was 9 of us from our battalion. And we went to Fort Carson, Colorado with the 4th Infantry Division. And so I did my first tour in 2003 to 2004. Second tour was 2004 to 2005. And the third tour was 2006 to 2007. So basically, I was just volunteering whenever possible because the money was good and I was around really awesome people doing awesome stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to keep riding deployments for the war. And that's what I did.
You mentioned you were around a lot of awesome people, and I think it's so important because it's that level of camaraderie, especially in the military. But when you feel the mission to serve as well, I think that creates a great atmosphere for your desire to continue to serve, if that makes sense.
Oh man, 100%. Because the other guys there, they everybody had a little bit of different reason, but once we were over there, like we knew we had a mission, and in our hearts at that point in time, we knew we were doing the right thing, and so just like we were like a family, and so that they were still there, I was still there, or other people would be deploying again, and I would deploy again with them, and it was just it was a family. Like literally, I found a family. It was pretty awesome.
I can imagine. So you said you went on 3 deployments. What kind of happened after those deployments once you got back?
So after my third deployment, while I was on my third deployment, the my wife started seeing other men, and so I get home and I found out about this stuff, and I just started diving into alcoholism really deep and coming off tour after tour after tour. That doesn't set you up to be a civilian. That sets you up to be a soldier that has war experience. And so I get home to civilian world and I'm like taking a break from tours basically. It's like there wasn't really another deployment going on, and so I just start drinking. My marriage went to crap. My family didn't really care about me. I was dealing with PTSD, and so I was just searching for orders. I was like, I just want to get on orders because that solves the soldier's problem. When you're in civilian world drinking, they don't want you to be a soldier. But when you're overseas being a soldier, they want you to be that, you know? So it's like my problems are gone when I'm over there. So I start searching and I get called up one day and they're like, hey, um, there's orders at this shooting school and we don't know what you're going to be doing. Do you want to go do it? I was like, yes. So for the next few years, stateside, I started working at a training facility basically where it's like training soldiers to shoot better. And that was basically like my saving grace because they're like, I really went over the end with alcoholism, and it's not funny at all. But and I do not approve of drinking, but anymore. But it was such a safe environment for me to be stateside, around soldiers all the time, around weapons, training, and like dealing with PTSD, which I didn't deal with. So for several years, I just worked with training soldiers about to deploy, which was a joy, in my opinion, in its of itself, because I know I was making a difference in the war effort, and I was helping people become better trained when they deploy.
So you do that for several years. What was your next move after that?
After that, I I switched over to that unit actually. So I was in one unit, and then the unit I was doing training with, I switched to their unit, and they gave me the opportunity to become a combat medic. So I went and reclassed to combat medic, and that was really cool. And around this point in time, a friend of mine who was in the military introduced me to marijuana. So basically, I had all these rage problems. The VA had me on all this medication. I was taking all these meds, drinking all the time. And dude, I started smoking weed and my drinking totally slacked off. I just threw away the pills from the VA. I was like, what the crap? Threw them away. And about twice a month, I would smoke weed and, or we'll say cannabis to make it sound official. And here's a little bit of a funny story. My friend, I got him on at the shooting school for a little while because he was working at Blackwater and he was home between contracts and he needed some work. And in my opinion, he was a cool dude. He was a ranger. So I was like, yeah, dude. So I get him on at the shooting school. And one day I shared with him, I was like, some stuff about me. And he's like, I'll share something about me. He said, I smoke marijuana. And I laughed at him. I was like, whatever, you're a ranger. A ranger would never do that. But he was serious. He's like, listen, he's like, I see you have anger problems and you have rage problems. But he said it in a really um, in a way that wasn't triggering at all. And he's like, man, you should try this. And so I was like, I don't know. I've never been high before. So I waited about 6 months before I decided to smoke. And I told him, I was like, listen, dude, if I have a bad trip or whatever this stuff does to me, just shoot me, okay? And he's like, what? I was like, listen, like, I can be pretty dangerous and I don't need to be tripping out and become dangerous. And so he promised me, he's like, yes, I will shoot you if you go crazy. But little did I know, like, that opened my world up to so much healing. Um, and that helped me navigate a really tough time with alcoholism and PTSD. Like marijuana, like did the trick 100%.
So When do you get out of the military?
In 2016, I was medically discharged because I had a rare disease called transverse myelitis, which caused me to lose the ability to walk and a lot of my core, and it gave me damage in my spinal cord from C1 to C5.
You mentioned previously it was that difficulty transitioning to civilian life, even when you were just stateside for a bit and not on deployment. In 2016, what was that experience like for you?
Um, Truth, it was like having a part of my identity just torn away from me. It's something I've been doing for over a decade, and literally I was sent my discharge stuff through the mail. Basically, you're broken, you're no longer a soldier, you're done. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly what happened. It's like they didn't care once I was out. Like nobody, literally nobody came to where I was sick and visited me. Like when I was back at home rehabbing for a year, learning to walk again. Um, it was a really difficult experience just losing that identity completely as a soldier. I was like, well, what am I now? It's like, what the heck? Like I'm a fish out of water.
How did you find ways to confront some of those things you were going through?
I just went head on with it. With going through the disease, I just told myself, I was like, I'm going to exercise every day and I'm just never going to quit. And I'm just going to keep pushing and like force myself to heal. Um, and then I started to really dig into like the PTSD. And what's really interesting, I discovered so much of what I thought was PTSD from the war was actually childhood trauma that had never ever been addressed or validated or properly filed away in the brain with the memories. And so I started like basically I was broken, and then I started uncovering all these layers of damage that had happened over the years, and just starting on this deep, painful healing journey.
Oh, I appreciate you mentioning that because I think just hearing, a bit about your story, that a lot of it, I'm sure, was sort of that compound trauma you had, as you mentioned, a tough upbringing, and then you join the military, and of course, that did give you relief in the sense that you weren't at home anymore. But I'm sure with 3 tours, especially during that time period, there was a lot to add on to the stuff that already wasn't unpacked. So I'm sure that that was a process of a healing journey, especially leaving the military, kind of what you had been used to for 16 years.
Oh man, tremendously. And I appreciate you saying that. It was just compounded trauma over 30 something years. And I had to basically, it's like either I collapse completely or I have to figure out how to fix myself. And so I would go through a phase where I think I was getting better, then collapse again and collapse again. And I think a lot of that was like, as a kid, our identities being developed, and I had really no identity of like self worth. And then being a soldier, that was just an ego that was created, and like basically they're programming humans. It's like you get here, we're going to program you, and the programming lets us know that you're very predictable and you're like all these other ones when that's in like against like being a human, of being free and being who you're meant to be. And so I had the shell of a soldier, which was covering up all the wound of a child. And then I had to basically go through the process of just completely having everything in my life destroyed, just boiled down to really go in and do that really tough inner work.
What kept you going?
Oh man, I've always had this little voice inside my head that like I'm meant for something much bigger. It's like a little voice in my heart. Um, And then when I had kids, that just solidified my desire to keep pushing forwards. Because I look at it like, if I don't heal myself and get better, I'm going to pass on generational trauma to my kids. And so part of the being human is like making sure the next generation is better. And my kids deserve me to be the best that I can be for them. And if that means going in and doing that inner work, which sucks, then that's what I got to do to become better and improved. So I would say my kids and that
Oh,
little small voice inside of me. I talked over you. I
I
apologize.
appreciate that. No, no, you're good. You're good, Paul. I appreciate that outlook because, as I'm sure you know, a lot of soldiers that do leave the military don't always do that inner work, and obviously they can go down some dark roads between the PTSD, the unhealed trauma, and then of course substance abuses at times as well. So it's commendable that you were able for your kids, for yourself to do that work on yourself.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So everyone's journey, you make a decision, not really knowing the outcome. Can you give me a time where you just went for it?
Okay. Last year, um, so a little bit of backstory to this. In 2022, I had a spiritual awakening, and it was the most extreme experience of my life. And it came out of the blue. And once I went through that, my whole shift, my whole perception of life shifted to what was truly real and what was important. And so I was literally like finding out like what my life purpose was. And so I went in and created a program. It's like I'm just going to commit to what I'm supposed to do, and that's to help people. And so I created a program called the Character Trigger, and there's different other teachings in that help organize the mind, which allows somebody to free themselves up from their past identity, um, organize their memories very well, and like basically not necessarily change the script, but reformat memories that were extremely painful and make them the most empowering memories. So you talked about origin story. So if each of us are the hero of our own story, and we're reading our story, like let's say for instance in Batman, like his parents were killed. It's like he could have just gone into depression, never did anything, but he took that and used that as fuel. But it's like, how can we look at our stories and take that most traumatic part and turn that into the pivotal point in our own hero's story? Where it's like, oh, this defined me as in this is what makes me powerful because I endured it and I grew from it instead of looking at it as a victim. And so I worked on that, and I've been working on compiling that into format where people can read it and learn those processes to go in and do the inner work. And I think the way I do it is hopefully receptive to people coming from like my background, because being a conservative Christian military, I was not open to the spiritual whatsoever. Um, But I'm hoping to like create a bridge from the spiritual to people that need that help. And not necessarily in like a woo woo way, but it's like, hey man, like you can organize your mind. You can change your neural pathways. And here's a mental tool that will kind of give you a shortcut to it. Um, so it's basically a leap of faith. Like I don't know what the next step is, but I just took a step out there and I've started working on it and committed to it. And I feel that's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's funny because throughout our conversation, you mentioned filing things away in your brain. And I think that's so important to really try to find ways to, again, adjust the way your brain processes things. And I think some people live in such negativity because they've lived in negativity their whole lives in some cases, that even when good things happen or when positive things are happening, they can't see it because their brain's just wired to see the worst in every situation. So, finding ways to help, especially people, as you mentioned, that come from that conservative military background, kind of did all the steps that they thought they were supposed to do. They get out, and there's not really, as you mentioned in your case, you were kind of just left by yourself. Thanks, not even thanks for your service. You served. Good luck. And so I'm excited to
Yeah.
see where that journey unfolds for you.
I, Me too. I don't know where it's headed, but I certainly desire to help people. Like certainly do.
So, title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. We mentioned it a little bit, but what got you into deciding to start being a guest on podcasts, and where can people learn more about you and what you're up to?
The reason that I wanted to start getting on podcasts is to share about Uncivilized Rebirth. That's the program, and it's on the school platform. This is not a pitch for a paid community or a paid service or a paid program, because all somebody has to do is go to that platform and go to Uncivilized Rebirth, and all the modules are free because I don't think the knowledge should be gatekept. And also, more about me, go to YouTube, Uncivilized Rebirth. And I've been doing that for a little over a year now. And I share a lot of inner work that I've done and a lot of inner work that really helps you navigate life a lot easier when when your inside is in alignment, for the lack of better words.
Well, Paul, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Jeremy, thank you very much for having me also.
We'll talk soon. That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.